Chocolate rain.
Man, I envy Colin, man. I hate the heat.
I love the heat. I hate the cold. I just hate the cold. Can't stand it.
What's the temperature right now, Colin?
Was meant to be 2 degrees this morning, which is
Chocolate
what,
rain.
34
Man, I envy Colin.
Fahrenheit, I think, round
I
about
hate the
there.
heat.
Chocolate rain.
I love the
I
heat. It's
envy
9 now.
Colin.
I hate the cold.
I hate the heat.
Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will talk about a Linux project, such as a Linux distribution, a desktop environment or application. We also chat about the news or any variety of topics, which we started doing just a little bit ago. Anything that is Linux tech and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And with me today, I have quite the panel of guests. I have Adam Grubbs, Colin, Peter, Zebedee Boss, Jinda, and Eris. How is everybody?
Excellent.
Doing great.
So I don't know if you've noticed, but we are using the Linux Saloon channel for the live stream. We'll see how it goes. It does have a smaller number of subscribers, so I guess we'll see what happens from there. So be sure to do the straw poll. If you have not done so, check that out. It's if you've been messing around with Solus, or even if you haven't, feel free to vote in the straw poll concerning how your experience has been with Solus. On the docket for today, we talk about what you've been doing in Linux or tech. We're doing the straw poll, talking about Solus, then hitting some news. And to kick off what we've been doing in Linux and tech, I kind of messed that up already. Awesome. Adam, you said you have been looking for you bought a new computer or ordered a new computer, something with new hardware, and I think everyone is excited, mostly me, to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, good times. So some of you in here may be aware that I have agonized over the last few weeks about potentially building a new machine or acquiring a new machine. And I wasn't sure what route I would go. I wasn't enthusiastic about building a computer. I'm getting a little too old for that, I feel. It's a lot of work and picking the parts and getting them, all that. It's a mess, right? And I never quite do the best job at building it. So I started looking around at pre-built options. I thought also about a laptop, like a more powerful laptop than the one I have, which is not a slouch, but not quite what I wanted. And so I ended up looking at pre-built machines, and I ended up ordering an Alienware R15 Aurora.
Oh.
And that's supposed to arrive this Thursday, so just a few days. It's kind of nice. They apparently, when you order directly from Dell, because they own Alienware, they custom build your machine in their factory and then send it to you, so it's not like an off-the-shelf part, right? And the stuff I got in there probably would not be something you could go in and just buy out like a Best Buy or something. But it was kind of a whole thing where I was going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to go with another AMD card or an Nvidia card, and because AMD's fine, but I feel like I wasn't quite getting my money's worth with them. Not to mention Nvidia cards are incredibly expensive too, right?
Right.
And so I ended up buying that, and for specs, because I'm sure all the nerd people want to know that, it's a 13900K, so I think it's 8 P cores and 16 E cores, like 24 cores total, 32 threads because only P cores are hyper-threaded. Supposed to boost to 5.8. I think the all-core boost is 5.5. For memory, I got 32 gig of DDR5, and for the storage is 2 terabyte NVMe, and for the GPU, I got an Nvidia RTX 4090.
Oof, nice.
And has a 1350 watt platinum power supply, so that's nice. And I got the one with the liquid cooler that comes with it, so it's a 240 millimeter, so 2 120s on the radiator and stuff. And I'm really looking forward to it. The performance is supposed to be just absolutely bonkers, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I believe, Zeb, you have a 4090, correct?
No, I have the much cheaper 4070.
47. Oh, okay. I thought you had a 4090, but
No,
I know
couldn't
Wimpy
afford
has
that.
one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Wimpy does. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm really looking forward to it. It was not a cheap machine, mind you, but I got a pretty hefty discount on it. And I'm really happy with the price that I paid. I actually last night went into PC Part Picker, if you guys are familiar.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Like went on there and like built out a machine as close as I could to what I got. You know, obviously brands are different and stuff, but I was genuine about it. I made sure to get like the right speed parts, the right, you know, memory, all this stuff to try to get as close as I could. And it came out to about $400 short of what I paid. However, that wasn't including tax. So if I included sales tax, that ups it up about $200. So they were only $200 apart, which actually accounts for the cost of the support stuff that I paid for. And so I actually, despite it being a pre-built and in fact an Alienware pre-built, I actually got a really good deal on it.
Sounds it, mate.
And what's nice is I got there's the support for it where they have on-site support. So I don't have to send my machine if something's wrong. They actually send the contracted field tech to my home to replace parts and stuff. So that's been nice, you know, because I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with that, like when you have to send a machine back for them to repair and you're like out of a machine for like a month, you know, because
Yeah, not
shipping
fun.
and all that.
But what I'm looking forward to, Adam, is the unboxing video you're going to make for us.
We'll see. We'll see. But there's plenty online you can see, but I might make one. But I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be quite the machine. It will come with Windows 11, and Windows 11 shall stay on the internal SSD. But I do have plans to try Linux on an external USB-C SSD to see just how well it handles. So I'll let you know. I'll probably have to run something like Arch, you know, because the new parts and all that. No big deal. But
Or Tumbleweed,
or
OpenSUSE,
or Arch.
or OpenSUSE.
Oh yeah, like Arch. Yeah. No, that's
Or Solus.
or Solus. It's just a matter of the drivers, you know, like gotta do enough drivers. So actually, Zep, I had a question for you. You have a 4070.
Yep.
Have you had any issues with getting drivers in Linux at all?
Have you got time? This is the
All right. Well,
this is the typical Nvidia woes with
Right.
Linux, and there are very, very few distros that do it out of the box without having to faff about.
Right.
The worst thing is,
Ubuntu and
believe it or
Debian.
not, Nvidia sending the wrong information through to the Linux community. So specifically on my card, and Dolphin Oracle checked this up, so I know it's 100% correct. My card wasn't even listed in the Nvidia list, so therefore Ubuntu drivers didn't pick it up automatically.
Oh, so according to their list of like, you have this card, your card doesn't exist.
Correct. So therefore Ubuntu drivers didn't pick it up. But if I installed the 535 drivers,
It picked it up.
perfect. It worked, yeah.
Interesting. I will see. It's been a while. A, since I've really like delved into this stuff, and B, since I've ran an Nvidia card, and so I will be interested,
Horrified.
but cautiously optimistic about my experience. I'm a bit of a Wayland fanboy, and I know like that's going to be problematic. But
It works perfectly well on Nabara.
does it?
Hmm.
Interesting. So yeah, that's the piece of hardware I got coming in, and I think it was built in Mexico because it's shipping from El Paso. So because they build them either in China or Mexico generally, and so it's supposed to be here Thursday.
That's excellent.
Cool.
If nothing
Cool.
else, if you don't do a video, it would be very, at least if you share some pictures of the process, you know, on the Telegram group, I think that'd be fun for me. And, you know, maybe that's it. But, you know,
A lot of people it would be fun for, I think.
Yeah, I will definitely share. I
Okay,
actually
good.
went by Menards today and bought like a little wire rack shelf. Like I just bought the shelf part, not the posts,
Uh-huh.
just so I could not put it on the carpet. So
Oh.
yeah, it's like $12. It's all good. But again,
I'll be,
I will let you know how well it does. I'm sure it'll be fine.
It's not my
Speaking
machine,
of
and I'm
Alien
excited
Man.
for you already.
Yeah, I think it's,
I've been messing with an Alienware computer, my nephew's computer, all week because he had Windows 10 on that. It was absolute 120 gig SSD, and it got to the point where it wouldn't update. So I put Windows 11 on there, and that was a bit of a nightmare because it says it's not supported, although it's working.
Oh yeah.
I thought I would leave it on there, but it wouldn't load his university pages, and I figured out that it was a Wi-Fi driver that it needed. So
Yeah.
I managed to get that in, so it's working. I never tried Linux on it though, but I'm not sure. I try not to put Linux unless I really have to for
Right.
certain people, anyway, for the young ones.
So that's actually
Yeah.
another thing I forgot. It's kind of surprising for a desktop, at least for me, but it does actually have Wi-Fi built in, which is nice because my apartment, cabling's not really a good option. But it has Wi-Fi 6E and all that, so
Very
that'd be
nice.
kind of nice.
FYI, Colin, Windows 11 was the very first Windows Insider OS that I've ever gone, nah, and went back to Windows 10. Windows
Yeah,
11
well,
on my machine
yeah.
is woeful.
Yeah, it's working all right, so I'm hoping it works okay for him and stays that way. I've done some updates all week. Seems to be remaining. There was a 160 megahertz Wi-Fi driver that it needed, and I did find that digging deeper into choices of what drivers I could install. But yeah, I was a bit apprehensive whether to leave it on there or not. But I thought a couple of years, Windows 10 sort of end of life anyway in October 25, I think. So
Preempting
If it
that
does-
extra work.
yeah, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But if it's a problem for him, I'll put Windows 10 back on there, or even Linux. I don't think he doesn't game on it anymore. I don't think he Xboxes mostly. So Linux would probably work well on there, I would think. I don't know.
This tower from Adam, it reminds me of that robot from Wall-E. You know how
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know
Eve,
how
I think her
Wall-E's
name
the
is?
like dirty
Yeah.
and he's like a lot of dirt, but then there's these other robot. He's like all future and like roundish and white.
Absolutely. Or like a knockoff Dyson fan that they
Oh.
forgot was supposed to be hollow. Yeah. But it looks pretty rad, I think. It's kind of nice to have something that's not just a normal box. I think
So
it'll be cool.
when you put a new machine on your network, do you
Mhm.
do you name it something like for me, host names are very important to me. Like they all have unique names.
They used to, yeah.
So you don't do that anymore?
I do, but like I haven't come up. Wait, I did have one. Well, I forgot it. Crap. I had one for it, and I can't remember it now. But that's okay.
Eva.
But right. So I like most of my machines used to be named after the Futurama robots. So like
okay.
Flexo, Roberto, Calculon,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
characters. The only one that didn't was this Asus laptop I have, which is an ROG laptop. So I just called it Roger.
Okay.
And because it fit. And so I can't think of. I had one, and I'll have to ask Nessa because I told her. So I'll have to let you know what my host name is going to be on that one.
Cool. Yeah, I like to name my things depending on what their role is. We'll change the name, but normally they're all named after some sort of transformer.
Ah, yeah. That's actually a good one.
Yeah. So like my server, guess what that's called?
Starscream.
Optimus Prime. Yeah.
Or just Prime.
Optimus Prime.
So
I
makes
felt
it
like
fun.
trolling you with Starscream.
yeah. No, I don't have a Starscream or a Megatron. They're all mostly Autobots. I like to think my home is filled
okay.
with good machines, not machines that are bent on taking over and destroying. For the better of themselves.
Boring. Machines.
I know.
No ambition.
Is that the one you bought, Adam, or this one is a desktop or a laptop? Did you buy?
It is a desktop. It is an Aurora
It's a desktop.
R15.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't know why. I thought you said laptop. Don't know why.
Oh no. It is a desktop.
Desktop.
machine.
Yeah, that's a really futuristic looking desktop, isn't it? Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
And
think it's
looking at
because
the
you mentioned
pictures,
Wi-Fi.
Colin. Looking at the pictures, Colin, that's a flaming weird laptop, mate.
Yeah, I know. No, I know it's a desktop, but I thought he said laptop till I looked at the picture, and then I realized it was a desktop.
Probably because you mentioned Wi-Fi. That I have Wi-Fi.
Probably, yeah. I threw him off there.
Yeah, a lot of desktops have Wi-Fi anyway. The pre-built ones from the big
Right.
mobs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
That's
you
yeah,
want to
like,
say something,
I'll-
Peter?
So Adam's mentioned the Windows end of life story. I just had an end of life story happen to me. And I'm going to show you my Chromebook. The stickers on it will date it itself. It's got some really old Big Daddy stickers and Destination Linux, some old stuff. Huh? But it was bought in 2018, and it's now telling me it's end of life for Chrome OS. It will get no more updates. 5 years old.
Yeah, I
Almost
wonder.
made it.
I wonder how hard it is to put Linux on it. I know that.
I've got enough machines. It was purchased as a traveling machine. It was great when I went back to Scotland last year. My wife gave me recently her Razer 15 laptop. I've got Solus on there, so I've got a good traveling machine. So, but it's interesting that Chrome OS only lasts 5 years.
But that's very synonymous of the throwaway society that we've got today. Yeah, they don't
Yeah,
build
it is, isn't it?
things to
Yeah.
last. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
buy a new phone, throw it away 2 years later and buy another phone. Throw it
Yeah,
away 2 years later and buy another phone. And it's the same with, not so much with laptops, but certainly I found with Chromebooks, because I've got an even older one than that. And while it still works, it's just so ridiculously slow now that it got given to one of my granddaughters to mess around with to get her used to computers.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that about the Chromebooks going out. Like a lot of K-12 education folks who got in on the Chromebooks, you know, back in like 2018 or so.
Mhm.
That's what they're facing right now.
Yeah.
They have like entire fleets of Chromebooks that are out of support,
Mm.
and they're having to find a place. And like, what are you gonna do? Give it to like, you're gonna sell it off to someone that it's not supported, right? So it's like, yeah, that's an e-waste problem, especially
Yeah,
all
that's
of the like
ridiculous.
a lot of school systems wanted to do 1-to-1 laptop ratio, like a laptop for every student, and that's what they did with Chromebooks. And like, buddy, that's a lot of e-waste coming that way.
Yeah, it is.
So one more thing about it,
yes.
I managed to get the RTX 4090 under MSRP for the price. So instead of the normal like 1600, I got it for 1570. So, but the main thing is I didn't get ripped on it, which is nice. But it is still half the price of the machine. Is just the GPU. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
surprised at that. I did not expect to get a good deal on it, and I got a ton off of the price.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a neat looking machine, and you said that it was something the hardware is pretty custom, so you probably can't do a whole lot like down the road with it.
Yeah,
perhaps.
the motherboard and the power supply are both proprietary.
Okay, that's a Dell
Which
thing.
is fine by me because I didn't buy it with the idea of like swapping parts and everything. I bought it as like, because I bought like the highest end model, right?
Mhm.
And so I wanted this machine to like go into many, many years into the future without having to replace a part.
Right.
Maybe upgrade memory if I really want to. I got 32 gigs, so I should be fine for a while. But like, the only thing, there's another NVMe slot I could put an SSD in, and then there's a 3.5-inch bay for a drive if I want. But like, that's the idea. I was thinking of it more like you think of a console, right? You buy the console and you just use it for the generation and onward. It's a similar idea. I wanted something that had so much performance headroom that it will last quite a while. Similar to like the 1080 Ti I bought like 6 years ago or whatever it is now.
No, I get it. I mean, it's like your gaming console essentially. You're gonna put Steam or whatever else.
Right. I mean, yeah, and
If
I'll do
it
more than
launches,
gaming with it,
yeah.
of course. But yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, as much as I like the whole repairability thing, I think that, you know, it's one of those things that's not every case does everything have to be absolutely completely repairable in every situation. I think and there's room
Right.
for that, you know.
I mean, it's repairable and like Dell can replace, like I can get Dell parts to replace it, right? But I don't really think it's that big of an e-waste problem because it's a machine that I'm going to keep using rather than take parts out. And, you know, like I feel like that's more of an e-waste problem is constantly replacing parts rather than just using a thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, so I'm done. You're good.
Well, cool. Well, yeah, be sure to keep us entertained in the Telegram chat or Discord, wherever you want to, you know, throw your pictures. And
Yeah, definitely.
I look forward to that. If you have not done so already, be sure to do the straw poll about how your experience has been with Solus. Although it's actually worded differently, how your experience with Solus has been. So there you go. You can do that straw poll. That would be great. So Eris, oh, by the way, I just want to welcome Eric. Thank you for showing your beautiful face, and Wolfnick, thank you for showing your beautiful avatar. Glad to have you both here.
Yay. Glad to be here.
So how's that poll shaking out, Eris?
Okay, let me refresh. So, like you said, the poll is, how has your experience with Solus been? First answer is, it is amazing. I can't do the voice because I'm not Enya, but like, sail away, sail away, sail away.
Oh, you want me to do it? You want me to do it,
you
Aris?
wish.
Here we go. Here we go. Sail away, sail away, sail away.
Oh, it's good, man.
That's
That's
beautiful.
good.
I
I
Thank
love
you.
it.
And then the second answer is, it is good. Both of them have 22%. And then after that, it is okay, 11%. And then didn't have enough time, busy with work, 11%. Then other 11%. 6% did not have a good time with it. 6% not interested in this exploration. 6% not interested in doing the explorations in general. 6% took his penguin. And I did get some replies. Let me see what those were. It says, I am using Solus Gnome right now, and it's actually working very well. It still amazes me as how fast Solus installs on a laptop. And then somebody else said, so far so good, still exploring, but everything is going smashingly well. Install of the US to adding software has all been great. Budgie has something clean and welcoming about it that is hard to articulate, and it really excites me to see what the team will bring next. Solus 4.4 Budgie has been running great on my Racer 15 laptop for weeks. Somebody else said. And that's about it for the replies.
Sweet. Yeah, I do think that there's something very clean and crisp, very welcoming about Budgie. I don't know, I can't really articulate it very well, but I do see that. I personally think that it seems like that's where the momentum should be for the project. It's really putting Budgie out there as the desktop for it. So I guess we'll get into the Solus distro exploration. I know that Peter, he showed up here. I think he's like, if you say Solus 3 times in a row, or maybe PC Linux OS 3 times in a row, or something, he'll appear. That's always fun. So we have some rules for any distro explorations. The intent is to talk about the different aspects of the operating system and discuss the experience from using it. This is a discussion by which should be objective and constructive. Any sort of non-objective opinion like this is garbage is not really helpful. But rather, if you could say, I wish it had a specific feature, or I really need this feature to do, a thing. So I want the conversation to be beneficial to the I want the discussion to be beneficial to the conversation. So the point here is to highlight the positives, but not ignore the lowlights of the project. So remember, this is a labor of love for some. Let's not poo-poo on it. So a little bit about Solus. Now, we're not going to do a Linux user space historical deep dive into Solus because that would be the extent of the show. And also, I don't have it in me. But Solus is previously known as EvolveOS, is an independently developed operating system for the x86-64 architecture. It's based on the Linux kernel, and it has a choice of Budgie, GNOME, Mate, or KDE Plasma as a desktop environment. Its package manager, EO package, which I think that's still it, right?
Yes.
It's based on the PySci package management system from Pardus Linux. It has a semi-rolling release model with new package updates landing in the stable repository every Friday. Developers of Solus have stated that Solus was intended exclusively for the use on personal computers and will not include software that is only useful in enterprise or server environments. So it specifically targets users. And just, although I have a lot here, I'm not going to read it all. So it was September 20th, 2015 that Ike Doherty announced that Solus 1 will be codenamed Shannon after the River Shannon in Ireland, indicating that codenames for releases will continue this theme using Irish rivers. And then later on, he had left Solus. But what's important here is in January of this year, Solus infrastructure suffered an outage, which lasted until April of 2023. The outage brought down the website, forums, and development platform required to update the system. The website was restored by moving it to an internal infrastructure, GitHub pages on February 27th, 2023. On April 16th, in a post on Reddit entitled Riding the Ship, Josh Strobel announced a series of measures aimed at restoring order to the Solus project. It was followed by a blog post, A New Voyage, which provided more detail about the new personnel and announced the intention to explore rebasing Solus on Serpent OS. Their development infrastructure and forums were restored alongside that announcement and built infrastructure on April 20th. So it means that Josh Strobel, who left the project just to do Budgie, and then Ike have both come back to Solus and have are now guiding it in a new direction, or in an old direction maybe. I don't know, but I feel as though it's back on track. So some ISO options. We have Budgie, No, Mate, and Plasma. Did anybody here do anything besides Budgie?
Yep,
Okay.
I did Gnome.
Okay. And then Peter did something
I
else.
got Mate behind me.
Okay.
I tried Gnome as well.
Okay.
And Budgie. I tried both.
Okay.
And they announced that Mate's is being sunset and that they will replace it with XFCE in the future.
Wonder why that is. I didn't read the article.
They said in the blog post that Mate is not getting a lot of development, so they wanted to switch it to XFCE, and they also wanted something that had Wayland support, and that since Mate is not getting a lot of support, I don't see the Wayland support coming either.
I kind of see Mate as like feature complete. Like it's kind of just beautiful the way that it is. Does anybody agree with that?
It's a fair point to say, like, what more is there to do, considering it was a continuation of something that was already pretty mature. So, I mean, not to say that the Mate team hasn't done a ton of work since then, but yeah, I'm with you. When there were new things, it was kind of like, okay, just little things. And it's nice to know the support's there, that if there are any bugs, that someone's going to jump in and be able to fix things. But yeah, I agree with you. Like in terms of like roadmap, where do you go? I don't know.
Well, I think it's the Wayland support that's the issue now, isn't it? Because everyone's saying that X11's getting old. From a security point of view, not that I'm an expert on this, I'm just things that I've read. They said that Wayland's better for security. And, Cinnamon and Mate are probably the two desktops that come to mind that haven't moved to Wayland. And it looks like Solus are creating their own Wayland Wayland implementation or session or whatever you want to call it. So from what I read, correct me if I'm wrong, I might be wrong, but
I mean,
I can't remember what
XFCE is still an X11, and I think they're going to move to WL roots, which is excellent, but that's going to be a long time coming. So I'm on XFCE now. That's my desktop of choice, and it's still X11 and will be for probably quite some time. But yeah, it'll eventually get there.
I heard it's moving quicker than what you expected, to be honest, XFCE, from what I heard.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the old
When
trope.
XFCE moves, I know it'll be the right time. So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There was it probably about 5 years ago or so? I think Eric, we might have talked about it. How XFCE, it went from like the project almost like on life support for a while there, and then all of a sudden, just like there was
Yeah.
just picked up and started really taking off. Probably about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I think. And
Are they
it
gonna
was-
rebrand a WFCE? Which sounds like a wrestling thing.
It does,
Anyway.
yeah. I'm in support of
that's a
that.
good one.
And then you can have,
Are you switching to Wayland, brother?
and then you, and then you can have like Dolphin Oracle and maybe you, Adam, like smack talking each other on taking each other down, stuff like that. That'd be great,
I can see your screen tearing from over here. I got it.
So this is why I chose to install Mati on my spare machine, because I want to go through the process of Solus and see what actually happens as they change over to XFCE in time.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be interesting. I suppose the question is now is I was a huge Solus fan. I was using it for quite a while. Followed Ike. I just think that guy's just got a brilliant brain for the things that he does. He did leave to go to Intel, right? Because I'm sure he was working at Intel.
For a while, yes.
He knows his stuff. I'm just hoping that these guys coming back, I don't know why they left in the first place, unless there was trouble in the camp or whether they just had other things to do. Now they've come back because Solus was just on life support. So, how long are they? Will it remain the way it is with these guys staying there, or will they decide to move on again? That's the question I have.
Yeah, we've been told the next blog post is who the team is and the future of the team. So that's coming soon.
Okay, all right. Yeah, they're the interesting. I'll tell you what I find interesting with Solus, with the Solus install now on the Budgie desktop. They have a lot of the what do you call them? The apps, not apps. The what do you call them when you put them on the panel and stuff? Applets.
Yes. Applets.
Which they have in the Ubuntu Budgie, which I thought they were never going to have in there, which I find interesting. I don't know if they're written in Python, because that was one thing they never wanted to have in the Budgie desktop was anything written in Python. I don't know what they're written in, but it's interesting to see some of these applets there. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. You've got the Haste applet, they've got the Budgie Kangaroo applet. There you go. They've got the Kangaroo, and they've got quite a few other things as well, which is interesting. And the what were the other ones? Hot corners and window previews. So they're all the stuff that Ubuntu Budgie had in there that Solus never took on. So I find it interesting that they're in there. I haven't tried them yet, but it's interesting that they're there. I don't know if anyone knows anything about that.
So what does a Kangaroo applet do? Does it threaten you, or I mean, I can't.
It probably hops you from one desktop workspace to another.
Oh, okay, all right. Violently, probably. Good times right there. So I thought the default, Budgie desktop, as it, well, actually, let me back up here. Did anybody have any issues installing it?
Nope.
No.
Other than the usual Nvidia woes.
Okay.
Jim just got to swing it.
It wouldn't take my short password.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's true.
It's for your own
I
good.
think there's definitely a certain amount of expectation that the user understands partitioning if they're not giving the whole disk to the system, right? There's no real option besides loading up gparted and getting in there and doing it yourself. Doesn't even really tell you what the standard layout is. I wish if they were going to do that, they would just kind of say, hey, by the way, these are the things you need. So I set up a dual boot just to test it out and play around with it. And I went in and, created multiple root partitions and stuff like that. None of this is difficult for someone that understands what they're doing, but I have to imagine that, again, a new person who's firing that up and is presented with the the choice of either your whole disk or you got to now go into a partitioning software and try to figure that out. So that's one thing that I definitely, it stood out to me as being like sort of you got to kind of know what you're doing there.
Solus has never been for new users. Before it disappeared, I used to have long discussions with both Ike and Josh about making it available and easy to use with other OSs. And their answer is, we're not interested in other OSs. You want to use Solus, you use it our way. If you don't know how to do it any other way, we're not going to tell you. You have to figure it out yourself. That's not what we're here for. We will give you a fantastic experience if you do it our way. If you want to mess with Windows, if you want to mess with other distros, if you want to mess with Grub 2, go and learn it yourself. We're not going to tell you. And in some respects, that's probably the biggest thing that I don't like about Solus. But in other respects, it's what makes Solus so damn good. That they don't care about the other eco structures. They just get on with the job at hand, and what they do very, very well. But it's never been a beginner distro.
The one thing I will say that the software installation system, though, that is very user friendly. It's a great user experience. It's very fast. It doesn't sit and spin and look at you funny. So I mean, there's that.
Does anybody know if the software repo does that update your flatpak and snaps, or you have
No.
to do that by yourself?
Flatpak is manual.
Okay.
So flatpak is manual.
I think Zeb kind of nailed it there, and I don't know if they've said that in so many words, but that is really definitely the feeling you get, where it's just sort of like, this is how the system is. You know, outside of if there's a package that maybe you'd like to see and you could submit a request, definitely feels like, you know, this is what it is. I don't need to stop us right now, but at some point during this discussion, I would love to hear from people who enjoy using it. Like Zeb, you just mentioned them doing what they do so well, and I guess I would want to know what that is, because I struggle a little bit with what is the value proposition. Like in my own day-to-day, I kind of think like, why would I run this over anything else? I'm sure they're there. I'm sure there are good reasons, and I just don't know them. So yeah. And that's not meant to be a negative thing. It's just really meant to be like, I don't know the answer. So.
I wonder if it's because it just feels really tight, like a real tight experience. You know, it's kind of like, why do you go to? I'm not equating it to this, but the little hot dog stand on the corner where the guy has a little like cart, the hot dog cart. Why do you go there when they have fewer options than going to the restaurant? It's an experience. It's a very quick experience. You know what you're getting, and it allows you to get from point A to point B in a very efficient fashion. So probably not someone who has lots of requirements, perhaps, but someone who has fewer requirements. I would think that Solus is probably a perfect desktop for. So like, you know, for instance, we were just talking about the whole Chromebook fiasco, and I think it was before the show, and how like a lot of schools have to dump them. I mean, I think something like a Solus OS on a Chromebook for in an educational institution, if you could have that sort of like fleet management also built into it, would be like a perfect usage of Solus, because it is so nicely baked down to a great product. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
It does. It does.
Yes, curated. Yeah.
One of the other things that occurs to me is Linux can be a little samey, right? So you install a different distro and you say, okay, well, that's the same installer that everybody uses, and all the packages are really pretty much the same. Maybe the theme is different in some way, or maybe they've got some helper utilities, and not that those things don't add value, but you can definitely make the argument that if I'm a little tired of that, and load up Solus and see how different their things are, the installer or the package manager, like that could definitely be like a breath of fresh air. So I could see that as well.
I think
I'm playing devil's advocate on purpose. I'm trying to get you to tell me why.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Yeah. Well, from my perspective, I've used it a lot in the past, not just recently, but it's a rolling distro. It's something that you probably never really will have a concern of the kernel going south on you and not starting up. It's tightly integrated and they do well with that. Yet packages are always up to date. The biggest problem with Solus back in the past was the amount of software they had in the software center. That's improved a lot. They've still got the third-party thing, but now you've got flatpaks, and there's a lot of support for flatpaks now. So I think that sort of puts that to the side because you can pretty much get anything you want now in flatpaks mostly. If not, it's probably in their software store or in their third party. It looks great out of the box. It runs really fast because of the way they integrate. From what I know, it's mainly done with C++. That's why everything works seamlessly and really fast. So, and that was the whole idea of everything with Ike's plan, was to have everything written in the same language and not mixed and matched. So I think that's why they theme it really nicely and it works fast and efficient, and you never have to worry about any upgrades going crazy on you. So I think they're the positives that I can see from that, and in the past it worked really well that way. I just moved on from it. I might go back and have a look at it again and maybe run it as my main. I don't know yet, but it's a thought. But yeah, they do have advantages as long as they can keep up with the updates and stuff. I think it might be a worthwhile distro, but they're the positives I see in Solus, to be honest.
So about the software that's available in Solus, I looked at in the software repo and it said that you can install Vercrypt, ZuluCrypt, VirtualBox, Vert Manager, Brave, Slack, Google Chrome, TeamViewer. Some of them are not actually in the repo, but they have like a way that the program itself like gets the program and then does that magic and installs it. So
yeah,
I thought that was pretty good. All that software that's in there.
Yeah, that's normally in their third party section.
Yeah.
And that I think was originally built because so many people wanted to have Google Chrome that they tried to work out how to get that installed. And from there, and although I was maybe overly negative a minute ago in saying that Solus don't care about anybody else, so use it or lose it, for me, it enables them to stay really focused. And even now, they've only got, I don't know, 10 or 15 programs in the third-party repos because they want to concentrate on providing the best experience for their idea of how Linux should work, the packaging system, the backends. To be honest, I've never seen a quicker installer than EOPKG. It just seems to be ridiculously quick. Installing the OS, I think somebody mentioned it right at the beginning. It's ridiculously quick. And back in the day when I used to do all of these distro hop-ins every other day, it was the single fastest OS installer out there. From the moment you go, you've made all your choices and you go, like no word of a lie, 90 seconds later, the thing's installed. It's stupid. You then get logged in, you go through all the Nvidia woes, and the thing I like about it is it just works, and it works really, really well. I used the GNOME version of it. I didn't really get on with Budgie. I found it a bit too fussy. But GNOME, the experience for me is great. Everything is so lightning fast. And I think it's fast because they don't worry about how many other people they've got to be compatible with. This is our OS, this is how it works, this is as fast as it's going to be, because we're not going to allow 54 million extensions. We're not going to allow, like you were talking about, Colin, although they are allowing some now, maybe they've lessened that somewhat, but they want to keep it tight. And somebody made a good comment in the YouTube channel about. It's very similar to, and I've got to get this right because I've got to make sure I give the right OS, otherwise I'm going to get shot. But it was something that Anna said about an Ubuntu type distro, Elementary OS. They were very, very similar back in the day. This is elementary. This is the way we do it. And if you don't like it, go and use something else. And Solus have taken that to the nth degree. And for me, it then produces a really good distro to work with. And just to update on a slightly different matter, how am I getting on with Nobara? Squirrel, sorry, Solus came along, and although Nobara is still installed, Solus, for me, works so much better. I just think the experience is good. The software updates once you get past the install, because I still think although Nate, you said it's a very good, easy, user-friendly install. I agree with Eric. If you don't know partitioning, it's black your whole drive or go and learn something. It's quite difficult in that regard.
Sure, and I understand that. And I respect that as a valid argument. But from when I say that, I mean from the perspective of I'm going to install this and I don't know what I'm doing. Like, and I don't have a lot of requirements, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah. And the thing about someone said it wouldn't take my 4-digit password. The stupid thing is just put 2 more digits on the end, go into Solus, change your password as root, and you've now got a 4-digit password. So all this fuss about, oh no, you can't have a 4-digit password, it's not secure enough, you must have more than 6 characters, blah, blah, blah. Hang on, this is my OS, my password. If I want to use 7168, I'll use 7168. So you just do it in root afterwards and just change it.
What Windows PIN?
Say again?
We know your debit card PIN.
No, it's not my debit card PIN, but it's been my Linux password since I don't know when, and I even told everybody at Self when I went there, what are you telling people your password for? Because if they can get to my machine, good luck to them. What are they going to get? Linux distros. Because I don't keep anything really, really important on this machine that I mess about with. I keep all that on my laptop. And
I share my password, but this is supposed to be family friendly, so
yeah. And that isn't 7168 on my own laptop, yeah. But no, going back to Solus, I think they've done a fantastic job. It's great to see that they're getting the band back together, so to speak. And long may it continue. My only caveat to that is a bit like what Colin said. Well, how long is it going to last? Well, until Ike sees his next squirrel.
Yeah, maybe. I think that's one of the concerns of a more boutique distribution. I think that's why there's a lot to be said for corporate backing or some sort of business interest in a Linux distribution. Not saying that like big corporations are the answer to anything, because I don't think they are. But like, if something is sustainable and not just living off of donations, but they have a way to monetize and have some sort of a strategy to make it where people can eat by doing the work, then I think that has some more legs and can carry it further, as long as the vision and the passion remain. So it's, one thing we said, I mean, like them or not, and I know that, this may be controversial, but, Red Hat does feed a lot of people that are Linux developers. So there's good that is done in that regard. They push the envelope forward, and they will sustain and continue to exist so long as they don't, upset their client base.
So Peter, you've been keeping quiet, mate. I know that you were a long time Solus user. So
yeah, November 2016.
So how are you feeling now that the band's back together?
Oh, I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. Yeah. See, Josh did leave the Solus team to head up Buddies of Budgie, but I personally still kept in contact with him in Mastodon, talked to him and such, and followed him on Buddies of Budgie. And he's doing great. He's doing great work there. But it was sad that earlier in this year, when you saw the downfall, you saw people struggling, the whole infrastructure came down, and I think I said it in the last time I was on here. I got dismayed, and you know that poll when somebody says to you, okay, if your current distro ever goes down, what are you going to use? I actually had an answer, and Ali in the chat room is going to like this, because PC Linux OS was my backup. I had it on a laptop, and when I couldn't see the way out for Solus, I had certain work that I had to have secure. I wasn't getting security updates. I switched my main Filio system over to PC Linux OS. And then the next week, Josh and the team got together and put out that the new blog about the new voyage. And I thought, great. So I did install Solus back on the laptop and the Razer my wife gave me, and I've been watching it. So I've actually been using 2 distros now, and I've been part of the forum. Zeb, I see you're in the forum too. Thank you. And I'm seeing their dedication. I'm seeing them in Mastodon. I'm seeing them in the forum. I'm seeing them in Matrix, and I think they're dedicated to the cause. They have a plan. They promised Solus 4.4, because remember that came out of Distro Watch saying it was inactive. But they promised a new ISO. They delivered 4.4. They've been delivering updates. I got over 100 updates on Friday. So the team's working. They're now promising 4.5. They're working towards that goal. There's a GitHub or something development page for Solus 4.5, which they're working on. You can actually actively watch that. And then the goal after that is to go to Solus 5 based on Serpent. So that's a future plan, but you can see the team are very dedicated and they want to do this. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too, just because it's, you know, it's sad when a project kind of fizzles out, and the fact that there's that return, that to me is exciting, for sure. I remember it was actually Colin that broke it to me months ago, that the Solus webpage was down here on Linux Saloon. That was disconcerting. I don't know, Colin, do you remember that?
Was that me or someone else?
I thought it was you.
I know I spoke about it, but I don't know if it was me that actually. I don't know. Maybe it was me. I don't know.
Well, I could go back and watch the footage, but I'm not going to. I'll just give you credit. And if I took the credit away from like Adam, then that's all the better.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shame to see those sorts of things happen, to be honest, because you've got some really talented people there, and I think Josh Strobel, I used to watch him on YouTube just doing his work, and it's not that I understand any of it, but it was just interesting to watch him do some stuff, and you know, it's just. I was even trying to, at one point, I was such a fanboy. I was trying to do applications because I was watching him and Ike do those things on YouTube, but I just couldn't work it out. But I gave it my best shot, just couldn't do it. But there is a way of doing it. But it's Ike himself is just got so many ideas, and when Solus first came out, and like Zeb said, the speed of the install and how fast it works and all that, applications they said that these things were going to happen with the Budgie desktop, because I had high hopes for the Budgie desktop, and that never really happened. Sort of just stagnated and stayed the same as what it was. So I thought there was going to be a lot. I thought it was going to be, my expectations of the Budgie desktop, I thought was going to be like a new GNOME with different things that GNOME could do with, you know, workspaces and, you know, overviews and all this, but it never happened that way. So it just remained the basic sort of plain desktop that it is. Nothing wrong with it, of course, but I just thought there was other high hopes for it. So I don't know what they're planning in the future, but that was my expectation, but maybe I should have lowered my expectations a bit. You know, it
That's
happens these
interesting.
days.
Interesting, Colin, that you use the word plain with Budgie. I find it
Yeah,
anything but plain. I just find it too many options in too many different places to work out how to set it up right. And I've got used to it before because I used to use Ubuntu Budgie for a while.
yeah,
And yes, you can get used to it, but going back to it, I tried it first, and it's amazing how much you forget how to do things when you don't do them day in, day out, day in, day out.
yeah.
Um,
True.
and believe it or not, before we came on the show tonight, it took me half an hour to reread up how to install a Flatpak because I'd forgotten. And
Right.
they don't make any of these things user friendly. I'm sorry for all the geeks in the channel, but I keep harping on about this same thing. As a generic user coming into Linux, doing some stuff sometimes is not easy. And I'm sorry, installing a Flatpak is not easy. Not until, like all of these things, you read about it and know how to do it. But no, Budgie has never been he's been anything but plain for me. But if I can quickly just go back to those YouTube videos you was on about, I always used to love watching those because it's like watching Martin Wimpress work on a terminal.
Yeah.
Ike and Joshua, when they were, and you used to be able to have the two of them up side by side, and Ike would be
Yeah.
working on one thing, and he'd be going, "Oh, but I can't get this to work, Joshua. Have you done this yet?" And Joshua would, "No, hang on a minute, give me 2 seconds." And then 2 seconds later,
Yeah.
he'd do it and finish it, and then Ike would go on and finish something else. And I can only liken it to going to the opera and either seeing that guy from the O2 shop sing or seeing Luciano Pavarotti sing. Watching masters at work is, no matter how, whether you understand it or not, it's just incredible to view. It
Yeah.
really is incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, seeing
I agree with
experts or
that.
people who are great at their craft, whatever that craft might be, is always enjoyable for me. Whether it's someone playing the piano or even coding like Martin Wimpress, there's something like just, it's really cool to see an expert just do an expert thing, and usually makes me feel bad about myself because I can't seem to do anything with such skill and finesse.
We all have our weaknesses and strengths, don't we?
Yeah, I'm
You're
so
still
fat.
my favorite Backstreet Boy. Just remember that.
All right, the one that never actually made it on stage.
Hey, were you not the one with the frosted tips?
In the 90s. Oh, excellent. Were there any
I
areas
think
that?
that's the first edit there.
Well, actually, so I'm gonna let this one go and just leave it, just not cut anything out, and just see what happens here. I'm not gonna, no editing this time. So for
Wow.
just gonna leave this one live. See what it does with the numbers. I don't know. We'll find out. So no cuts, not even those frosted tips. Any areas that anyone found difficult with Solus? So Zeb, you said what, Flatpak maybe? I didn't actually.
But then that's not Solus's fault. That's just Flatpak's fault for me. I've always found it confusing how to get it set up on a distro if it's not already set up and how to use it. It turned out to be very, very simple. And I actually found an old Solus forum post that just said, run these 2 commands and then run this command to install Zoom. But if I wanted to go and then pick something else to install, and I don't know if it's because I haven't installed the equivalent of the Flatpak store, but it seems like that, getting applications, normally you go to the software center and you just install them. Well, I've never really come across a Flatpak software center. And I've never been a great fan of Flatpak because they just, for me, take up so much room, because each installation is its own little sandbox, as if I understand it right. And I get that it can use certain parts of another application, but I always found when I was doing some tests back in the day, and I think I installed 10 Flatpaks, and I'd used up like, I don't know, 20 gig of disk space. It was ridiculous. I don't know if it's got better since then, but I've never been a fan of Flatpak, even though I understand all of the security reasons behind it and why it is good. And I've always found them a bit slow to start, but I'm not seeing that on Solus. And I think it's because they've been able to keep everything so tight and integrated that they don't have to worry about the, equaling everybody else. So, they just got their system tightened up so much that it just works really, really quick. And I now can't tell the difference opening up a Flatpak and opening up a normal application. They're open. Next. It's great.
So one thing that I noticed, like at least with OpenSUSE, Flatpak is already set up by default, but you have to activate the FlatHub repository. So in the settings, you can it's just a checkbox, and then in Discover, you can search for any Flatpaks that you wish. So that's actually really easy. And I think Fedora is the same. I think some other distributions, I think maybe Kubuntu. No, Kubuntu's not. I think they don't have Flatpak now. But it was. So I know it's an option that can easily be activated. But I do think that they should just include FlatHub by default. I understand why they don't. It's not software that's curated by the distribution itself. But, things like Flatpak do allow some sort of isolation. It's a little bit more akin to like how Android delivers its applications in its little sandbox environments. And I will say that I remember you bring up on Destination Linux many years ago how when you installed Discord, it was like gigs of information it pulled down or something like that. I think that's what it was, wasn't it? Was it Discord?
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff has been really cleaned up now. And now that things are broken down, like they have these different cores that are downloaded and that are shared between multiple Flatpaks. So they're platforms or targetable platforms within Flatpak to build an application against. So something that's a little more static. So there is that. That is a little bit. It's a little bit cleaner now, and I think that there's I think the Flatpak system has lots of potential. I think to be a great way to distribute software, and I have noticed software lately that I've been downloading from Flatpak has looked a lot better as far as like theme integration into my that's really been improved as well. So I got a lot of hope. I got a lot of, maybe justified or not, I have a lot of hope in Flatpak and even Snaps for that matter.
There's a lot of dependence on it too with immutable distros. It by design, right? They are making it so that you kind of have to use Flatpak or third party. I mean, it doesn't seem like many distros outside of Ubuntu are really on board with Snap necessarily. I don't know why, but Flatpak seems to be the choice, and all of the immutable distros that I'm aware of are leaning pretty heavily on it. So the good news with that is, as anything gets more use, more feedback, more reports, that kind of stuff, then it does improve.
Right.
Even just little things. I noticed that this week the flathub.org site. So that's where I go to kind of just do searches for things to see what's available. Used to be that, and I always use the command line code to install instead of going through the software center. And so I don't click the install button. I'd scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, click the copy icon to get the command, and then install it that way. This week
in the top right now,
they put a little and the button itself has a little drop down in it where you can go and copy it right there. I was like, somebody gave the feedback, please stop making me scroll
all the way to the bottom. Yeah.
So that one little change is like, it just made such a huge difference. So it's little things like that make life easier. So anyway, so yeah, I expect, I mean, we've seen Flatpak get so much better in the past few years. I made a video years ago about needing to have Flat Seal, which is the utility to change permissions in Flatpaks to do things like access different parts of your hard drive in your system and stuff like that. And that used to be a routine thing. And someone made a comment on my video, why would you even need this? I've never had to do this with Flatpak. And my answer was, because it's that much better now, you don't have to do that. It used to be that there were a lot of them that you did have to do it. So, I do think it'll get better and continue to over time, especially if you have Fedora and like these other big distros really putting a lot of weight behind it. So
what I think is also really cool, like Discover now, it actually shows you all different permissions, and I believe you can edit it also, like right in Discover, and I think right in GNOME software. So you don't actually, I don't think you need to install FlatSeal anymore unless you want to do some real major tweaking. But like some of them,
Yeah,
all the major
yeah.
stuff now. So it's all actually really pretty nicely presented, really.
Yeah, and to Zeb's point, I mean, expecting a user to go and run the commands and have it set up, I mean, that's a bigger ask than I think a lot of people would expect to have to go through. So, um, I think that's maybe something that will change. I would think a distro like Solus, a smaller independent distro, that takes some pressure off of them to not need to maintain or have to package a lot of stuff, because if you can just say, well, it's on Flatpak, why do we need to take the valuable finite resources we have for packaging software whenever there's stuff that isn't on Flatpak or something that should be running as a native package that would run better as a native package. So anyway, yeah. Go ahead, Swift.
Well, that's exactly why I get annoyed when people bring up that same tired argument. I remember when Ike would regularly be on various Linux podcasts, and the first thing it would always come up. Well, there's limited packages with regards to Solus, and it's like, get over it. Like, especially especially right now. At this point, that's no longer an excuse. And then a lot of times I'll be like, okay, well, what program is it so important that you use? Okay, you can package it yourself. You can flatpak, snap, whatever. There's ways to get around it, but it's like people sometimes it's like they want to be difficult for the sake of being difficult. And it's not really about the software at all. It's just they already don't want to use the distro. Okay, so just don't use the distro. Big whoop. There's thousands of others that you can do and use to your heart's content. But let's not waste time complaining about something you're not going to use anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is a certain contingent that will find the fault and then beat that drum.
But what about
I don't think
you?
anybody who runs Solus and really enjoys it for all the reasons we've talked about would run up against a situation where there's like a package that they didn't have access to, unless it was something like, absolute necessity, which honestly, I know what I need out of a distro. And the first thing I do after I get it installed, or even before, because you can usually search the package repos online, is see if they have those 5 packages that I absolutely have to have. And if they don't, or they're not on Flatpak, then, then that's probably something that's going to stop me ahead of time. And I'm not going to complain about it to the distro and say, well, this is garbage because you don't have that one package. Like, come on, man. So.
Yeah, and really, if there's a piece of software you really want, I mean, you can. I'm pretty sure you can make it happen if you really put your mind to it. You can accomplish anything, just like Doc Brown would say in Back to the Future.
And I don't know if it's still the case, but certainly in the old days, there used to be a place on the forums where you could request a package be built, and then they would sort of like vote on it from the back end in a sanctum. And if they felt there was enough need for it and they had the time to do it, they would do it. And if not, they would just tell you, no, sorry, you're literally the only person in the world asking for this. So you're going to have to work it out for yourself. If you go to here, or if you watch this video and slow it down, you'll be able to work out. So if it was really that important to you that you had to have it, and you must be using Solus to work on it, then you would take the time and the effort to get it to work.
Yeah. I think most people who use Linux are already, this is probably going to sound bad, but are already willing to compromise in a lot of ways, because you've kind of had to fight the fight of like, oh, well, there's this piece of proprietary software that just doesn't run on any Linux, let alone, one distro over another. And we tend to be pretty good about, if you really care that much, you can find a way around it. If there's some piece of proprietary software that will only run on Windows, for example, but you only need to run that thing once a month, then you just have a virtual machine of Windows and you run that thing and you get on with your life, you know? And I think that's just comes from sort of being on the fringe a little bit. Although I had to laugh that I saw someone had made a video that we are no longer the 2%, which I had to laugh
Oh yeah,
at.
I've seen that twice. I've seen that twice in the last day.
We've bumped up a point.
Oh,
So look out, world, we're coming. But yeah, I think it takes it's a certain it's a certain mindset that, you know, you kind of know that big companies probably are not going to support what you're doing. If it wasn't for Steam, you know, we wouldn't see all of the support for games and Proton and all the other stuff we've seen and all of that. So, you know, on one hand, you know, you can't expect it, but on the other hand, you have people who step up and do extraordinary things to make it work. So, and it's really interesting to be a part of it. I mean, if you care about what you do on a computer, and a lot of people don't, and so fine, they go to Best Buy, they buy a computer and get on with their lives. Like, great. That's not how I use a computer, you know?
You think I can get a refund on my 2% t-shirt?
You're gonna have to cross it out and write 3 next. Actually, that would make a better t-shirt, Zeb.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Nate, I found one thing difficult with Solus. There is one thing I found very difficult with
Okay.
Solus.
Fire away.
I could not finish my coffee before the install completed.
You know, I think you should write up a bug report just on that. It says that I was unable to finish my coffee in time. Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah. And that's yet another benefit of not, you know, including everything, including, you know, in the kitchen sink, so to speak, because now you have certain programs you work with that you know you're going to get right out the box by default, and other things you may have to install on your own. I mean, I did that with a recent installation of Solus. There's programs that I wanted. Okay, so I went, maybe in Flatpak, I go ahead and get them and call it a day, and then I'm happy.
Mhm.
No problem.
And unless you're a distro hopper, you're not going to know that that's the fastest installer out there, because you're going to install it once and then use it.
Yeah.
And the only time you're going to have to install it again is if you do something, you know, ridiculously wrong and blow it up yourself. Because that's another thing that I found when I was using Solus before. I could leave it there for weeks and weeks and weeks, go back, update it, and it would just continue to work. We'll have to see now whether that does it.
To your point, that whole issue that went on with the servers and we can't find this and that went on for at least 4 months. Do you realize that as soon as they started the update process, hey, we got things together, you can now update. I clicked update, it updated, and my computer still worked just fine. Nothing broke. Despite months of inactivity, months of whatever, people complaining, oh my God, Solus is over, the ship crashed, yada, yada, yada. And meanwhile, I'm looking at these Reddit comments and I'm like, you guys need to stop. Everything is gonna work out. They're gonna get everything together, learn from what's happened before. Yeah, it was dumb to have one person with the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. I get that. That was dumb. Yes, you got this person that's having repeated issues and can't get to the server, and they're the only one that can get to the server because they have an affiliation with RIT. Okay, you shouldn't have done it that way. Okay, let them learn and wait, and then you'll be good to go. Less than a week later, they figured their mess out. Ike was back, Josh was back, the crew was back. Now we're all back. So it was like, great. So everybody that was naysayers saying it was dead, it was like, oh, well, all of a sudden you guys now have nothing to say. Gee, I wonder why. Meanwhile, I'm kind of patting myself on the back like, hey, I'm happy I was patient and just waited with the project, let them work it out so that we can all have this OS, this distribution rather, that we really enjoy using. I didn't want to use nothing else. I stuck with Solus.
Yeah, and
It's all
it worked
great
out.
points. You made one mistake. You read Reddit.
Oh yeah.
It's probably not really good for you. You probably shouldn't do that. It's not a.
Oh my goodness. Because people will ask the same dumb question over and over again. It's like, dude, they answered that already. Just read the link, get the information, and be quiet. So sure enough, now we got it.
Yep.
I'm looking at a computer that, I mean, yeah, everything's been running just fine.
I remember I blew up my solar system once on my main system. I was having problems. What's that one that you call to communicate from one computer to another? Not SSH, the other one. I can't remember what it's called now. I was having problems with that.
SFTP?
Huh?
SFTP?
Was it called Warp?
No, it's the other one. I don't use it anymore. I can't remember the name of it now, but just on your home network, you would use it on your home network just to communicate from one computer to another. I was having problems with that. I uninstalled it and it uninstalled the whole desktop in Solus.
Ooh.
I can't remember what it's called now. I really need to find out what it's called. But yeah, that I don't know why it was connected to the whole desktop because I
Probably
thought I'll
Samba.
uninstall. Oh, Samba, that's the one.
Yeah.
Samba, yeah. I
Yeah,
uninstalled Samba to I thought probably something wrong with that. I'll uninstall it and reinstall it. I uninstalled it and there was no more desktop left.
That's why you got to check in. I'm sure it said it's going to remove these things, but I've done it too. Where you're like,
yeah,
you didn't
hands
pay
up,
attention, you just click yes.
Hands up. Who's done that? Uninstalled one application and then everything's just gone.
Yeah,
whoosh,
absolutely.
Gone. Yeah.
Because of some hard set requirement that really shouldn't have been there probably. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's a good lesson.
Like you reboot and you're like,
yeah.
there's nothing.
Where's my desktop?
Oops.
Fun times.
Yeah. It's called live and learn. That's how it works. A mistake is just an opportunity to learn something new. That's it.
Yeah.
So one final point from me, Nate, and it is a huge plus. This is the first OS I've ever installed that's been able to run my monitor at 240 hertz out of the box.
Nice.
Nice.
Everything else drops down to 3840 by 1080 and gives you it at 240 hertz. And the minute you go to 5120 by 1440, you only get 120 hertz. But I just spotted it literally before we came on the show, and I thought, I wonder if, oh, hang on, look, we're on 3840. So I changed it, went and clicked the drop down, and there was 240 hertz. And I'd always heard that was really hard to achieve on Linux. Well, Solus have done it somehow.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
So what was the big problem you had said was just your Nvidia, was it? What didn't work or?
Yeah, just Nvidia drive. It's the normal.
Nvidia.
The minute you have the latest and greatest of anything, there are very few distros. There's very few distros that can cope with it. And Nvidia have always had that problem. Yeah, you get an old drive. My old 2080 Ti worked on everything because it was 4 or 5 years old by the time I got around to try everything. But
yeah,
the 4070 is a brand new card. The 40 series is a brand new card.
Right.
And they just don't know that it's there. So you have to go through all of the usual different techniques from different places to get it back in. And invariably, it's once you've installed them and the system's updated itself and made its new image that you're going to boot into, it's that image that fails. And sometimes I've been kicked out to the command prompt, and I've literally had to do something like start X or run the desktop command or whatever. Right. And it works. So why it can't work when you reboot it, I don't know. And I'm not clever enough to dig down deep enough to find out which part of making that image that you're going to boot into is failing, that the desktop display doesn't come up. But I'm getting a bit of an expert in it now, so I know how to do it on Debian, I know how to do it on Ubuntu, I now know how to do it on Solus,
Yeah.
And the stupid thing is, it's invariably run the install command again for the Nvidia driver when you're at that. And it's a certain, and I can never remember the terminology for it, but if I'm stuck on a desktop, I'll do Control-Alt-F2, and that takes you back to a certain level of the command prompt. I don't know what level that is. Or you can do a Control-Alt-F7, and that takes you back to what should have been your desktop. But I don't know the terminology for what it's called. But get down to that Control-Alt-F2 level, reinstall your drivers, reboot the system, and 9 times out of 10 it works. It just doesn't work first time, which is really strange.
So what I'm hearing you say is I should just leave Linux on my AMD laptop and not put it on my new machine?
No, not at all. It's just because you're clever enough, and you'll probably be able to work it out and send the developer back the answer as to, hang on, you're failing because of this, and this. No, the experience with Nvidia for me is so much better than AMD, with all the troubles that you have, because it's a better. For me, it's a better gaming experience. Always has been and always will be. Sorry, Nvidia AMD fans. I know you like to jump on a bandwagon, but for me, the gaming on Nvidia is so much better than AMD.
In full disclosure, I'm a Intel onboard graphics fanboy, so it's really easy to set up. I don't do anything, and I love it.
I think for me, Zeb, I think it was the x11xord.conf file. I think that if I with my Nvidia, because it's an Optimus, if I had the standard file for that, it would always bring me up a blank screen. I had to drop down to the command prompt, like you said, to actually delete that file. And and then it would boot back up again.
Yeah,
they're the problems I used to have.
Yeah, and that's the only other thing you'll have, Adam, as well, is working out, once you've gone into the Nvidia control panel and set all the options, good luck trying to save it so it remembers it next time round. Very few Linux distros out there will actually save a proper xorg.file so that when you reboot, all of the settings you'd previously set up are working again. So I've got a little shell script now that I run, because my monitor does all stupid things. So it's a little shell script that says NVIDIA settings, set DP0 as this with this hertz, and DP2 as this with this hertz. And I run that command and the flame squickers, and I've got my 2 ridiculous size screens back. So that's the only other thing you'll come up to. But you can see me on Discord, mate. If you get stuck, just bell me and we'll have a chat.
That's mighty nice of you. All right, so why should one give Solus a spin? And when it's like Swift, if you're to give like the elevator pitch, why should someone give Solus a spin? What would you say?
It's fast, it's easy, it's reliable. You got a great team working on it, and you're just going to be good with it. It's something I've used since 2016. Have been very satisfied ever since. And yeah, you want a game, they got you. You want to do whatever, they got you. I mean,
Sweet. Yeah. Excellent. Anybody else want to like say maybe like why they should give Solus a spin? What do you think?
I think Swift has covered most of it, to be honest. Yeah. It's fairly simple. No need to reinstall. It's continuous updates that probably at this point I've never known to break your system, and your applications are always updated, so you're up to date with the most, well, except for Flatpak, of course. But yeah, I think you've got an updated system there that's always got the latest and greatest apps, and reasonably stable, I'd have to think. Mm-hmm. Is a good word for Solus, I'd have to think. Stable and updated.
Yeah. So just to repeat what I said earlier, because it's worth it. Anytime you can have a system that sits there for months at a time with the developers not doing anything, and they can get their updates working again. You click update and you're back going again. No breakages, no problem, and you keep going like you always have been. that says a lot about the distro in general.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment, because I think actually Swift, you and Peter must have both weathered the storm with your with the Solus always installed, even the updates not coming through. Is that right?
Not quite true in my case.
You reinstalled PC Linux because you needed something.
I need a I have a side volunteer job. I need a security on.
Okay.
And as I said, a week later, the team was back. So
It's interesting that Swift says he just updated and he's back on track. That's just unbelievable.
Well, I did install 4.3, which was a 2-year-old ISO on the Razor 15. So it's not old hardware, but it's not new hardware. So the Solus 4.3 from 2 years ago installed just fine. And I did one update and I was back on track.
Wow, that's just incredible. I mean, that's what you call stable, really,
yeah,
to be honest.
2 year, that beats the 4 months. 2-year-old ISO.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
That is pretty crazy. Like 2 years in the tech world is kind of an eternity, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Like 2 generations almost. Every year seems like a generation.
Yeah.
So I think that speaks volumes on its own, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just those couple of stories there. Yeah.
Cool. Well, great. Well, I'm glad we had a good talk on Solus. I'm very hopeful for its future. I hope it continues, and that people continue to be happy, especially Swift. A happy Swift is a happy Swift, right?
Promote.
Excellent.
That is, in fact, flawless logic.
It is. I mean, it's useless, the information, but a lot of things that come out of my mouth are kind of along those lines.
Not to Swift, it's not.
No, not to Swift, but it's like it wasn't profound or we haven't benefited from that. We just wasted airtime.
It did make me laugh. So
well, okay.
I actually thought just a couple of things that I'll bring up while we're still on Solus is I thought they weren't going to rebrand the GNOME desktop, Zeb, because they said they weren't going to rebrand it at all and moving forward at some point, or has that changed?
What do you mean rebrand it?
Like I think they said that with the changes of libadwaita and all those sorts of things, they weren't going to. It probably won't look the same as all the other desktops. At some point, they said that. So the theming and all that wouldn't be the same. But
no
obviously
idea,
that's not
because
the case.
I never really paid that much attention to theming and adwaita and the 16,000 other different types of font sort of things you can do. As you know, I tend to just pick what they provide in the appearance tab, and the one that I always tend to go for is Adwaita Dark. Whether the corner changes, whether the corner's round or squared, whether it's an octagon or whether it's a circle, I really don't care. I just want to click something and an application opens and I use it. Whether or not there's a mismatch between the application on a native application and people fixate about, well, when you open Google Chrome, it's different to when you open another application, and it really does. We would need Rocco back to have that type of discussion, because he would notice
the pixel,
he would notice the smallest pixel. But as an average user, I wouldn't even begin to tell you whether or not GNOME is different. I just know I really love the Solus GNOME experience. So from the moment I discovered it, it's the only one I bother installing now.
Yeah, the Solus GNOME was always pretty good.
I always laugh at people who say that a desktop is ugly, because I am ugly, yet I'm loved. So
there we go.
Well, do they have different? Is Josh and Ike the ones working on the different desktops, or are they still got different people working on?
They got it's hard to answer. Josh and Ike are not technically part of the team. They're more consultants and helping out.
Okay.
As I
Right.
said, Ike's working on Serpent, which Solus is
Yep.
working towards. So that's why he's involved. I think he helped with some of the servers during the changeover, so he helped there too. And Josh stepped in to help too, but he's still running Budgie. But they have a good team, and the team that was left did try their hardest, but it did take the other two, Josh and Nike, coming in to guide them to get the whole team back together.
Yep.
All right. That's
the people who were part of the original team before Josh and Nike stepped in. They wanted to do so much, but as Swift said, one person had the keys of the kingdom, so they were hampered.
okay.
Well, excellent. All right. Anything else on Solus? No? All right.
Just that it's awesome.
It's awesome. All right. We'll make sure Solus, the awesome OS.
Right.
Works for me. All right. So for a little housekeeping, there will be no Linux Saloon next week for the 29th of July. I'm sorry, but on the 20th of July, we'll come back and we'll have a news flight night. So I have 1 week off. I'll be out of town next weekend. So no Linux Saloon. But keep the chats flowing and any of the ideas. If you have any suggestions, send to suggestions at linuxsaloon.com. I like email, even though Adam does not. I am not like Adam in that regard. So there's that. But I like emails are fun. If you have any distro suggestions, discussion suggestions, applications, poll ideas, check it out. Also, I think the Linux Saloon calendar is all updated through to the end of, I think, into October now. I think it's into October. So any of the weeks that we there or not, it's all there. And then what will be the subject matters coming up as well. So I thought that we'd do like a little open discussion. We've got a little bit of time before we close it out here. But since we're talking about Linux distribution, I thought it'd be kind of fun to have like a just from the Tux Digital Forum. It was your number one tip for a Linux noob. We talk about new Linux. People coming brand new to Linux, and we said Solus is not necessarily for the new user. But if you were to give, if you had one tip for someone who's interested in trying Linux, what is your number one tip for a noob?
Read, and then read again.
Okay. So
are you you're just saying in general,
just in general, if you tell somebody
any
I install it in a virtual machine first and try it out and get to know what it's all about before you even attempt.
Yeah, I made a video. It was one of my worst performing videos ever. It was like an hour long where I did so much work for this. Came up with a whole presentation, slide deck, like the whole 9 yards, which is probably why nobody watched it. But it was just basically that. It was like the whole premise was how to try Linux for yourself safely without doing anything in your computer or losing any data or making any changes. Completely, consequence-free way to try it. And that's basically what it was. You start with just go to a website like DistroWatch isn't the best option for a non-techie, but just look at Ubuntu. Look at the ones that everybody uses, that the majority of people use, because you don't necessarily want a smaller specialized distro to start, and see which one kind of appeals. There's only so many desktops, right? That's probably the best. I'm pretty sure I remember that's where I started. It was actually desktops first and then distros. It was because depending on which desktop you pick, you might lean toward a different distro. But yeah, the problem is that even that is heavy lifting for a non-technical person. And so I think really the answer is find something like this, or a good forum, or a friend, or somebody that has an interest in technology and knows something about Linux, who's willing to spend a couple hours just hanging out and talking to you about it, and maybe helping you install a virtual machine somewhere and kind of just talk you through some stuff.
They're saying
I know not everybody's going to have access to that, but
so what I'm hearing you say is so if your number one tip for a Linux noob is to join the Linux Saloon. Is that what I'm hearing?
yes, yes.
I mean, I'm
Good
good with
idea.
that. I'm good with that.
And the Linux
I think
Telegram.
I think
And
some
if
of the good advice you can give certain people is depending on people's use case. There are free and open source applications that are cross-platform that you can install in Windows, Mac. That's a good start if you can work with those applications, and then if you move over to Linux and try that in a virtual machine, or even from a live ISO, if you know how to write an ISO to USB, then you could try it out those ways. And I think just learning the applications, if you can learn to live without the ones that come with Windows, because the biggest thing that I had to do when I moved to Linux was find alternatives. I had to do that if I wanted to run Linux full time, which I always planned on doing. And it's just finding those alternatives and getting to know how they work. Not everyone's going to want to do that, though. That's the thing. Because it costs you your time. That's the biggest cost is your time, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, there are certain things that you can do. I mean, I install Linux for people that have no idea what Linux is. If their use case is simple, they're not going to know much of a difference. And they're normally family most of the time, so I can help them out if they have problems. But most of the time, you show them how to update, you show them how to browse, and at the end of the day, they know how to use it, and they don't know any difference, as long as they're not trying to use or have an expectation of what Windows is all about. So if you're going to go downloading .exe files and try to install those, they're not going to work. So the other thing is to make sure their expectation is not of Windows. That's another good.
Yeah,
good
that was
advice you can give
gonna be my suggestion, is make sure that you understand that it's not Windows, it's not Mac OS. Some things might look similar, but it is not those. And if you go in expecting the thing you're already running, it's not going to work.
Yep.
Yeah. I've only had luck converting a couple people, which is kind of sad considering how much of this kind of stuff I've done. But and those people, it was because they were just something happened bad in Windows, like they lost data or just something really burned them to the point where they're just like, I hate Windows so much that there has to be some other alternative to it, and Mac is not the answer. And what is it that what's out there? And they do a search and they find Linux, and but finding Linux is it's too much, right? It's, you know what I mean? Like just you've heard the word, now what? There's just so much stuff, and hopefully, I mean, I feel like there's, now that we're 3% and all, that we've really got some traction with good content creators, people that are much less about the nitpicky, nerdy stuff, and more sort of broad swath kind of thing, where it's sort of like, why is this interesting? And not just for programmers or geeks or hobbyists or anything, but like, why would you, average normal person, want to run Linux over something else? And so, I don't know. I still contend that Linux is the best set it and forget it option for most people in the world, because they're not running, nobody installs Microsoft Office on their computer anymore. Like, that idea of proprietary software is such a small use case anymore compared to doing everything through a browser. So if you're using a browser for 99% of what you do,
it's a bit of a sweeping statement, though, to say that a lot of people don't install Office. Microsoft are still making millions and millions and millions out of people buying it and installing it. So,
or Office
but
365.
you know what's up? You go to Office, you go to the website, the cheaper version, which is what most people are going to buy.
Oh, for sure, it's Office
browser
on the web. Absolutely, yeah. For me, the biggest hurdle to getting anybody on Linux is the minute you say to somebody Linux, they see this matrix type screen of commands rolling past them, and they haven't got a clue that it's actually a very usable desktop that just looks slightly different.
Yeah.
You've got a start menu, only it doesn't have a Windows logo. It's got a picture of a cat or an elephant or a frog or whatever the distribution wants to use. You click on it and up will pop the programs that you want to. Oh, look, here's your web browser. So you can do Farmville. Get on with it. Enjoy.
So here's an interesting thing is that I have worked with many technical people, even those with Linux skills, and I have not worked with a single person who uses Linux outside of work. Not a single engineer have I talked to, have I interacted with, that is like, yeah, I use Linux at home. They're like, no, I don't. Like, they're like, I use Windows or Mac or what. Like, I don't do Linux at home.
Well,
like that. They're like, that's for servers. I don't have a
I
need
mean,
for that.
That's interesting because
I'll take the heat for this. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
I was going to say when I first started with my first IT job way back in, when was it now, 1994. I then got into the IT department in 95, and 3 of the techies there were already Linux gurus. And they gave me my first view into Linux, and that's when I wrote my little thing about Linux is only for geeks, and you're going to have xenophobic traits at the end of it if you try and use it and spend hours in a forum, because back in 1994 it wasn't anywhere near as usable as it is now. So you might have just been unlucky, because I've met a number of people over the years that I've worked in IT that use Linux at home, and then you just made an instant friend because you found a Linux brother, and you didn't know you were going to get on with them, but you then spent hours chatting in forums instead of working. Did I say that? I don't care. I'm retired now.
So he's not here tonight, but Brian, who was here like last week, talked about Banana Pie. I got to meet him face to face. He came back to Michigan, which is where he's from, and he came to where I work because he was my predecessor. And so we nerded out for quite a while just on Linux and Linuxy things, and we automated something else in the plant and everything else. But it was actually really neat because he uses it, and it was just there. It's like when you find somebody like that that runs Linux, it's like you have this immediate bond, and you can talk about all these things. It's like, this is the only person in real life that actually cares, not just my e-friends.
That's right. Yeah, that's very true.
I noticed there's an interesting divide in the programming groups that I'm in, especially in the Bash community, where there's the people who only use it at work, and there's the people who use it at work and at home. And the work-only Linux devs get really annoyed when the work and home devs start talking about using it creatively, because they're like, "Oh, why are you doing it? Well, why bother doing that? Like, this is just work. It's just a work tool for them." So yeah, that's just something I've noticed.
Going back to Windows, I used to a little while ago used to say to people, try put Linux. I was a big thing about use Linux. Now I just put Windows on. Linux is an absolute last resort, because I don't like to force people to use it just in case something goes wrong. So they all know Windows so much better. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I give them what they probably should have. But in the case of my sister-in-law, she had a Windows 10 that was running so it was just bloated on an old Dell desktop computer, and it had an Ethernet on it. And as soon as you put the Ethernet cable in, it would just drop out because, that was with Windows 11. It was working with Windows 10, but not 11. But it was really slow running Windows 10 as well. So I decided, while I was living with her at the time, a few months ago, I'll just put Linux on there, and all she does is just browse her banks and email and whatever. So just put shortcuts on the taskbar. She's happy. I showed her how to update, and she's happy. It works fine, and the computer works much faster and cleaner than whatever it did. So that was a desperate situation, but normally I try to put Windows back on if I have to. So, you know, I do want to give people Linux, but it's just that you got to sum up whether it's right for them or not. So, yeah, I used to be Linux everything back in the day, but not anymore.
So
I don't know how other
think-
people approach that.
So Steve very own has a story, and I'm going to tell about. I'm probably going to mess it up. He had a family member who kept getting viruses or something, and he convinced the family member, okay, let me try you on Linux, and coached him through. Got Linux installed, and like the person you just mentioned, most of the stuff what they did was on browser anyway. So they were happy with what they were doing. It's all about the desktop experience. So it's all about the software you use. If you don't mention operating systems, people don't notice. So he had the person running the Linux install, no problem at all. But when family members would come into that house, they would use that computer, and then Steve would go in once a month or whatever and check it out, and there'd be a whole bunch of EXEs in the downloads area.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
That's the what, the mythical, grandson or cousin or whatever young kid comes over and wants to install their game, and it doesn't know what's going on. Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's tricky to assume that it's going to be a good solution for that reason too, and for someone like my dad who would just read a story somewhere, maybe he has a magazine or read something in the paper where he sees something interesting. If he were to have Linux, because you're going to assume that it's probably, unless it explicitly says Mac, that if it's something to do with a computer, it's going to be about Windows. And so he's going to read something like that. If he's using Linux, he's going to go sit at his computer and try to do whatever it is they said to do, or download a program or whatever, and it's not going to work, and he's probably going to be frustrated. Where and that, you're right, it's hard for us to make that decision for someone, even though we feel like it's I know I just said it 10 minutes ago, but I still think that it's a better, safer, more reliable experience. But there is still that possibility that they try to do something that they can't do, and it leads to frustration.
Until regression gets them.
I'll tell you what, I struggled for a little while to come to terms with what is the deal? Like, why does everybody care about immutable distros all of a sudden? And the ones that are out there, you kind of go and look at them, and they describe their ideal user. And for at least the ones I've tried, they are saying, well, these are people who are not technical. They expected someone to use it like they use a phone, right? They're gonna pick it up and just, whatever the OS is doesn't matter. It's really, these are the same people that never change the wallpaper, right? Or the ringtone. Like, it's just, they want an app to be on there. And that's where something like Flatpak comes in, and the underlying system is completely, untouchable. You don't change. Yeah. And I, as a more advanced user, see that and say, God, that sounds terrible. Like, I want to be able to change. Why would I ever want that? But thinking of it from an end user's perspective, like, if they have their browser and they have, let's say, someone set up their email or whatever, whatever the 5 things is that they do, if that's already taken care of, and then they can just go to a software center and maybe just sort of, if they're curious, look for something and then find it and click install, and like that just all works the way it should. Like, that's actually a pretty usable situation. And I could see, once that's a more mature way, once that way of running Linux is more mature, that someone capitalizes on that, and basically, instead of a Chromebook, well, I guess it's pretty similar to that, but that you sell a computer that is almost unbreakable, right? Like, how many people really can destroy Android outside of people rooting or anything like that? It's pretty darn hard to do.
Yeah.
So
True. That's exactly right. That's how immutable desktops are, aren't they? They're like running an Android phone, isn't it? at the end of the day when you think about it.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks back, I did tell an entire church crowd, plus whoever was watching on the internet, about Linux in a very interesting way. I either confused them or I intrigued them, or both, I'm not sure. But it was on July the 2nd. I was the speaker at church. That's the July 4th weekend, of course. So I chose the subject of freedom. And I mentioned different aspects of freedom. And I also mentioned my volunteer work for a Bible company called Mission Assist, and how when I applied to join this volunteer job, which types out Bible text, they have a proprietary software which is for Windows. And I had a big banner up on the church screen of Tux and the word freedom and Linux, and I said I use freedom. I use Linux. I don't use Windows. And people were looking at me shocked or bewildered. And I said, however, I did talk to the company. I said, okay, how can I get around that? How can I still do this job without using that software? And there was a way. I use editors and PDF readers and such, but there is a way. It's not their software, but there is a way of doing it, and that was my whole point. I have the freedom to still do the same job my way.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. It's awesome. So I've got currently I've got a brother-in-law that's got a Windows desktop. It took a half an hour to start. I fixed it for him once. I can't remember what I did to fix it. It was a while ago, and now I'm on the edge of, should I reinstall Windows 10 or 11, or should I give him Linux, because he doesn't do much on there. So I'm not sure what, because he said to me, what about that Linux thing you do? I said, yeah, we could. Just it's a decision I've got to make. But yeah, he doesn't do a lot. But I just got to find out what he does to make sure that he's not doing anything that's Windows specific, which I'm pretty sure he doesn't.
Yeah.
Decisions, isn't it?
Well, I do want to say to give credence to what Zeb said early on, his first thing, read. When I first got into exploring Linux, that's actually what I did for months. I read about it, tried to understand it, long before I even installed it. But I was in a situation where I couldn't actually install it. But yeah, it was one of those things that I did a lot of reading, tried to understand which distribution to go with and which how things work. And I had the thing that really tripped me up, that really messed me up early on, was the whole GNU/Linux part. I didn't want this GNU thing. I just want Linux. I don't want any of that other garbage. And so that actually was a deterrent for Debian for me, because I didn't want the GNU Linux. I want the pure Linux. So, and ignorance, But anyway,
yeah. I should have also said as well, watch some YouTube videos.
Oh yeah,
and,
for sure.
See if you like it. But again, with that, you've got to be really, really, exactly. Yeah, back in 1994, it wasn't anywhere near as prevalent as it is now. But you've got to be really careful with that as well, because there are some YouTube people out there making videos
that are garbage,
and they perpetuate the geekiness of it, rather than just trying to explain to people how simple it is to use. There's very, very few, in my opinion, good Linux aficionados out there who just show people how to use Linux and don't get embroiled in the techiness and the geekiness behind it.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yep. Well, it is that time. It's closing time, and therefore last call. I think Eris is going to start humming that song for all of us. But stuff to plug. I know, Eric, you are part of the Distro Hoppers Digest. You said you have, I think last week you said you have one coming out real soon.
It just came out this week. Yeah.
Okay.
So
it just came out. Episode 43.
44. Yeah.
44.
Yeah, 44 just came out. And so the clock starts ticking again. I'm in the process of finding another distribution to test with. It's been a long time since I've done anything with Arch, so I think I'm probably going to have to pick one of my favorite helper distros for Arch.
Sweet.
Basically the
that's sweet. But I think, isn't there like like Arch itself is easier now? Like they actually have a little bit like a thing to follow to make it easier. I think you should try maybe Arch proper and see how that goes.
Arch install.
Yeah.
I actually appreciate that what has actually come up, and I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree that it's supposedly easier, but easier, I don't know. I've tried what they call easier, and it's really let's compare that to something like Endeavor or any of the other sort of Garuda and all those others. Yeah, not really. So anyway, there's a few of those that I haven't tried. Reborn OS is one that I haven't looked at in great detail, and also just haven't run Arch in a while and kind of got that itch again. So
makes sense.
Yeah, so I'll probably be looking at something like that, or I'll change my mind and do something completely different.
And that's cool too.
We'll see.
If you want to go on a learning curve, go Arco.
Yeah, that's another one of the excellent ways to get Arch running that isn't the Arch way, I suppose.
Well, very cool. Well, thank you very much. I think Steve's very own. He didn't join us tonight, unfortunately. He was busy doing, Stevie things. He has a coffee clash every Sunday morning. I did see the notification for it. At least I believe I did. It's 8 a.m. Central, 9 Eastern. Not sure what Pacific. Make sure you check that out. Mark, I haven't seen him, but he has a group, Atlanta Linux Enthusiasts, ALE.org. They meet every Sunday from, I think it's 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, and they talk anything that is Linux or any sort of tech help.
And if you get them going, I was on until after 7 last week.
Wow, you really got them.
Just kept going.
That's awesome. That is so true. They'll stay on a long time.
So they're only obligated until 6 p.m., but you pushed them.
Correct.
I guess, yeah.
Mark actually put a message on the Telegram, and he said he was taking a break, but he will come back.
That's fine. I don't have any obligations. Like nobody has to be here. I don't insist on it. If it's just me, I probably will, sing to myself and nobody will watch. So we can't have that. So somebody's got to be here. But I don't, if you can't make it, that's all right. It's summertime. Rick, not a Linux guru guy. He just published something, I think today, I believe it was. I saw a notification in the Telegram while I was working today. So anyway.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
And Chris, he is informing me that 8 a.m. Central will be 6 a.m. Pacific. So 8 a.m. Central will be 6 a.m. Pacific. So there we go. Thank you, Chris. Linux User Space, they are on break still, but they are doing live streams and are releasing other little bits and things. So check out Linux User Space. They have I think they have a new YouTube that they're doing. I don't know exactly, but anyway, I listen to the podcast mostly. But check out linuxuserspace.com, linuxuserspace.show, and check out some of their back catalog. I'm on a podcast called Linux Out Loud. We talked about, I have two co-hosts, Matt and Wendy, and we talked about bad Linux journalism, because there's a lot of that. Watch out. I have a website called cubiclelate.com. I write articles from time to time. Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network. Check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for your support, however you choose to do it, being a part of the show, the conversation in the Zoom or on the YouTube chat, and as well as everyone for watching this show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved in making Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only enjoy our technology, but also to have this conversation and do all the fun things we can possibly do with computers, because that's really why I like Linux. And like Adam says, sometimes it's just neat. Linux truly puts personal back in a personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yas.